What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Thursday edition of NBA Live here at FTNDaily.com, presented to you, as always, by SuperDraft Daily Fantasy. My name is Zach Graham, a.k.a. Kawhisenberg DFS, and I am battling the scourge that is cedar pollen here in Central Texas, alongside my good friend Kyle Murray, the optimizer extraordinaire. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. No cedar pollen up here in Michigan, so nothing like that to worry about here. And I don't go outside, so I'm pretty much all set in terms of staying healthy.
Well, that sounds really nice to me. Some clear sinuses, certainly to be desired right now. And my guy, Kevin Pangos. We'll go ahead and just get right into it here. We've got 3 games now, originally a 4-game slate. Golden State and Denver postponed. So we continue the interesting slates, to say the least. All 3 of these games going off right at main slate lock, all 3 games. 7 p.m. Eastern. Unfortunately, Isaiah Thomas put into the protocols. Mavericks not on the slate, but that news coming through right as we went live as well. I mentioned Kevin Pangos, my EuroLeague sweetheart, played for Zenit St. Petersburg last season, signed with the Cavs this offseason and making his first NBA start for the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. I'm sure Adam Pfeiffer will be thrilled. Good to see everybody in here after yesterday's, we'll call it an interesting episode, a fun episode. I don't know if you were tuned in for that, Kyle, but all kinds of things popping up. We had a power outage. I was crying at one point. We had everybody changing their profile pictures in chat to a certain picture of Edward Fear. It was a blast. So we'll try to live up to that performance yesterday. And we'll go ahead and get started. Kyle, should we go ahead and start with Cleveland, Washington, since we just got that news?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, the Cleveland side, again, it's sometimes easier to read who is active for these teams at this point of the season, but not so for the Cavaliers today. Jarrett Allen, Darius Garland, Chetty Osman, Colin Sexton, and unfortunately Ricky Rubio. Those are the 5 guys out for the Cavs. Getting back Ed Davis, Lamar Stevens, and Dylan Windler. So shorthanded still here in the backcourt. Obviously, Kevin Pangos getting the nod here at the 1. Kyle Guy, for everybody's information, now with the Miami Heat, so you can see him as a Cavalier on DraftKings, but do not roster Kyle Guy. RJ Nembhard, Malik Newman are in fact there. So those guys maybe not in play, but on the Cavaliers and will score fantasy points if they enter the game tonight. Also, Dylan Windler going to be in the mix there at guard. So plenty to talk about at the forward and center positions as well. But let's start with the guards, Kyle. What are you looking at here in the backcourt for Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big news is Pangos getting the start there and deciphering some of the minutes there. It is a little bit of a bummer to see Ricky Rubio go down with that season-ending injury. He was playing so well, especially filling in for Sexton. It feels like this Cleveland team, they can't stay healthy, and it's a lot of serious injuries, right? With Sexton and Love Sexton and Rubio that is going down with those season-ending injuries. As of right now, I have the most interest in Pangos on both sites. 3,800 on DraftKings, 39 on FanDuel. He's the preferred guard from this team. Like Isaac Okoro is probably going to play a ton of minutes, but like I'm not necessarily dying to roster Isaac Okoro here in this spot here. I probably wouldn't say that any other players on this Cleveland side are priorities for me in terms of guards, but Pangos is fairly appealing here. I have to bump his minutes up a little bit. I was kind of assuming he could potentially be in line for the start here, but now that it's confirmed, his minutes will go up in the model and obviously be impacted in the projection. So Denzel Valentine, I also like a pretty good amount, but on FanDuel, he's all the way up at 5,300. That's a big price for him over there. But on DraftKings at 3,300, I think he's definitely in play. So in terms of guards, I would say Pangos and Valentine would be my 2 favorites, but my real interest is in these big men here. I think Mobley is fairly appealing here on both sides, under 8K, 7.3 on FanDuel. Kevin Love got a pretty significant price hike after playing pretty well recently. I mean, I would still prefer, I think I would still prefer Mobley in terms of feeling better about a player's minutes. But on DraftKings, Love is, $1,000 cheaper, over $1,000 cheaper. On FanDuel, I probably just lean Mobley because I feel a bit better about his minutes upside. But Love has been very good on a per minute basis, over 1.3 DraftKings points per minute which is about 0.3 higher than Mobley has been. So he can make up for the lack of minutes or maybe the shortness of minutes compared to Mobley with strong, efficient performances. So those two guys are probably the guys that I'm most eyeing or most keying in on. And I also like Lauri Markkanen a bit as well in terms of a mid-tier play on this Cavs side.
Yeah, I think Markkanen probably the one that's going to go overlooked, even though he's the cheapest, at least on DraftKings. I'm kind of, scrolling through the FanDuel pricing now after really locking in on DraftKings and SuperDraft for the rankings. 5.5 for Markkanen. I like that over there on FanDuel. And you mentioned Kevin Love and Evan Mobley closer in price there on FanDuel than the 1.1K savings you get rostering Love on DK. It's going to be interesting, though, we got Pangos obviously sliding into the starting lineup, but to see, is Dean Wade going to stay in there? Are they going to slide Markkanen back to the 3 and maybe give Love the start? I just think it's something we need to be on the lookout for leading up to lock here, that starting lineup, because Kevin Love, it comes down to how you think his minutes are going to be treated now. Like we mentioned, Ed Davis is back for this team. Lamar Stevens can step in there and kind of play some 4. So we saw 32 minutes from Kevin Love last time out, 4-point loss to the Pelicans. And then, 18 the game before in the blowout, and 23 is kind of what he's been getting almost as a median, right? If he gets 30 plus minutes here, I don't know how he's not a smash play. I don't have the confidence to project him for that much time, with that being such an anomaly in terms of his minutes this season, even when this team's been shorthanded. And the fact that they're getting all these other guys back who can step in and steal a couple of those minutes away. So a long way of saying I think Evan Mobley, even at the premium price you're paying for him on DraftKings, is my favorite option here. You get him at 1.35x on our sponsor SuperDraft. And all 3 of those bigs forward eligible there. None of them just constrained to the center position. So I think all of them in play on SuperDraft as well. And to kind of sneak back to the guards here, I'm completely fine getting Kevin Pangos in your lineups as a value play here at guard. You're really going to be looking for him to hit that double-double, which I think he's definitely capable of doing here if he gets mid to high 20s in minutes. Big-time assist guy. Going back to his days at Gonzaga, his 4 years in the EuroLeague, that's always what me and the EL guys were targeting him for, that double-double bonus in the EuroLeague, and 8 more minutes to play in an NBA game. So I like him at 3.8. How about, since we have the time to really dive deep into these teams, Dylan Windler's coming back, the former Belmont Bruin, really elite scorer in college, and has shown some flashes of that ability in the league, certainly in summer league and preseason type games. But he's back, min price, shooting guard only. Denzel Valentine has been getting elevated time. He could slide in and play some point guard off the bench here. And then Isaac Okoro at 4.4, guard forward eligible. I think the minutes are probably most solid for him in terms of the backcourt guys. And I kind of like him at 4.4 on DraftKings as well. How are you breaking down those, kind of the muck down at the low price Cleveland guards?
Yeah, I mean, they have this Cleveland team, they have a couple of I guess Justin Anderson isn't necessarily a preseason guy, but he's a guy late NBA season who's come on a few times over the course of the last few years, and they'll post random 1.5 fantasy point per minute type performances. So they have a couple of guys down here that have shown the ability to do that, like Windler and Anderson there. But for me, I just don't see a path for massive minutes from them. The real way that they would get a ton of minutes is if, for some reason, Valentine didn't pick up the run or Pangos didn't, but he's starting, so it's probably unlikely that that's the case. Or if Okoro, didn't get those minutes, but that seems fairly likely here. So if Windler and Anderson are able to get minutes, I don't mind it, but I just don't know if I can feel great about saying that they're going to see 20-plus minutes. But again, those guys are guys, if they do get 18 to 20 minutes, I mean, it's a 3-game slate now. We got to do some stuff like this, right? Especially, even in a weird world where everybody is, in the health and safety protocols, so where there's value pretty much everywhere you look. But even so, I don't mind taking a shot on some guys like this. I just don't know if this would be the spot. But if you wanted to, build a lineup with that kind of narrative where, hey, maybe this game goes a little bit sideways, Windler gets 20 minutes, Anderson, I probably feel better about Windler than Anderson, but if Windler gets 18 to 20 minutes, there's definitely a world where he can post a 1 point per minute performance and pay off that price tag. So I don't mind him there, but I would prefer guys like Wade and Okoro before going down there in terms of looking for some value guys on this team.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I kind of fall right in line with you there. I could even see Justin Anderson getting a DNP CD here.
Yeah.
10-day contract guy. They've got some of their, Lamar Stevens. You mentioned Dylan Windler back. And again, I don't think Stevens, Windler, or maybe even Valentine for me. Like if I'm running 150, I would have those guys in my pool and have a couple shares here and there, and probably prioritizing Valentine still over Stevens and Windler, who are coming back from the protocols. But yeah, none of those guys really priorities for me now. It's kind of just, as you said, it's those bigs, Okoro, maybe some Dean Wade. Again, I would want him to continue getting that start, of course. We know how low of a floor a guy like Dean Wade has, and then Kevin Pangos getting the start. But the other side of this game, a lot of moving parts for the Wizards as well. Looking over their injury report, we see the return of Bradley Beal tonight, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope also available for this team, and then everybody's favorite Anthony Gill also available for the Wizards. But since we last saw this team, they've lost Davis Bertans, a non-COVID illness for my guy, the four-fingered assassin there. Spencer Dinwiddie also placed into the health and safety protocols. And then the guys who remain in the protocols, Neto, Aaron Holiday, Trez Harrell, Rui Hachimura, and Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant, of course, not playing regardless, but still in the protocol. So we look at who is still available for this team. Beal priced up over there on DraftKings 10-1, only 8-3 on FanDuel. I think he's pretty enticing there, especially having that game time decision tag all day. And then Daniel Gafford is the second guy that I'm looking at here. And I guess I should say Daniel Gafford really the first guy I'm looking at from Washington, center only on DraftKings and on FanDuel. I know the price on FanDuel is still way too low, right around 5K, I think. Yeah, 5.2. And he's 5K flat on DraftKings. Daniel Gafford, 36 minutes last time out. And with Trez Harrell in the protocols, I really think that they're going to run Gafford 30-plus minutes, barring foul trouble. We know he's prone to picking up a lot of fouls, but we can't really predict that too much, and I don't want to lean on that and get away from a guy who projects so highly for his price. So I guess start with Gafford. Talk to me about any love you may have for him, and then the rest of this Washington team.
Yeah, I love Gafford today. I mean, so for me, I think I was actually pretty conservative with the minutes projection. I think I put him at like 31 or 30 or 31, which I think is pretty low. I think that there's definitely a world, and I'm at 32. So I still think that could be viewed as pretty low. He played, 36 last game. And if you look at it, I mean, they did bring in Alize Johnson. They have Isaiah Todd, who played 10 minutes last game. They have Anthony Gill, who was kind of the guy last year that came out of nowhere and played a few minutes. But, not a lot of names behind him, right? Like I guess they can push Kuzma down to the 5, but is this really a spot where the Cavs are going to have potentially 2 or maybe even 3 at times of Mobley, Markkanen, Love, like pretty big bodies out on the floor? Is this a spot where they try to run small? I don't think that's the case. So I think 32 is a pretty conservative minutes projection. And obviously this is a guy who is well over a 1 fantasy point per minute producer, 1.09 on FanDuel in the year, 1.03 on DraftKings. So yeah, I like him a lot. I'm at 32 minutes, 36 points on FanDuel, 34 on DraftKings. And I think that those are pretty conservative projections. I do think he's going to be popular. But I mean, for me, I think it's a pretty good chalk spot to eat, in my opinion. I just think that it's been a guy that we've honestly had interest in for a majority of the year. Now it's just a spot where everything's kind of gone right for him, where the only obstacle that he's really ever had, I guess there's 2, is minutes and foul trouble, but I guess those are kind of related, right? But if he gets the minutes, he's typically always been a very good producer in those minutes. So I really like him here. I think the price is just fine. I actually think it's probably too cheap for the role that he has. So yeah, he's probably going to be the top play tonight for me. He's number 1 in the player rater on both sites. Again, popular, but worth it in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you on Dan Gafford. And, I mentioned that Davis Bertans will be sitting this one out, and that's going to have some ramifications for the bench front court rotation, I should say, because Bertans played 21 minutes in their last game against the shorthanded Miami Heat. The starting five for this team played massive minutes, so you're missing 41 minutes out of Spencer Dinwiddie, bringing Bradley Beal back. You would think that because Bradley Beal was in the protocols for, I think, the 5 days or maybe even maybe less. I know he took a day to come back after he got cleared, or a game to come back, I should say, but I think he probably gets back towards full minutes. But with Bertans missing, you saw Alize Johnson get in there for almost 10 minutes. The rookie Isaiah Todd played 10 minutes as well. So when you're looking at these value pieces, I know we can get back to some of the more familiar names here in a minute, but if Dan Gafford was to get in foul trouble, do you think it's going to be Isaiah Todd, the rookie, or is it going to be Alize Johnson really getting that minutes boost? Or do you just kind of think they split and kind of tandem down the middle?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and obviously that this could be a spot where if you were willing to take a risk there, because like truly, like you just don't know, right? Like we can speculate and guess, but we really don't know. It could be Anthony Gill for all we know. Like he didn't play last game, but he could still get run. So like it is tough to like say with a ton of certainty. If I had to guess, I would guess it would be Todd because he got one more minute than Johnson, but I mean, it was like, I don't even think it was a full minute. I think they were right there in terms of minutes. It was like 9.5 and 10 or something for Todd. Yeah. So it's tough to really say. But in my opinion, I think that you have more value in trying to determine whether you think taking that risk would bring any kind of positive reward rather than try to determine who it's going to be. Because if you try to determine whether it has value, you can say, okay, I'm going to have 5% Alize Johnson or 5% Isaiah Todd, and beat the field, in my opinion. But if you want to sit here and try to determine who it's going to be, I think that could be a little bit tougher. I see you're getting some mute button jokes. You haven't gone on mute with me yet, so I think I might be your good luck charm.
Let's hope.
But yeah, so I think that there's more value to saying if there is going to be some upside, if that scenario happens, take a few stabs on both of those guys. I wouldn't say go all of that exposure to Todd or all of it to Johnson. Maybe supplement 5% to each guy if you think that there's value in that situation. And I guess there could be some, but it kind of just depends on the range of outcomes in terms of how many times you think that actually pays off for you. And for me, I would say 5% for maybe both players, nothing really too much larger than that.
Yeah, I definitely want to look. I'm scrolling through FanDuel now. I see Alize is sitting there, power forward eligible.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at Todd, Isaiah Todd, if I can spell. He's also power forward only. Okay, so not taking away from your opportunity cost at center there. I think I'd slightly prefer Alize. More established fantasy point producer in his career, albeit always as like the 12th or 13th man on a team. But I think the power forward eligibility is more attractive to me on DraftKings. So sliding back to the more notable players on this Washington team, and then we'll get to some of these questions before we change games. Kyle Kuzma, 6'8" on DK. Denny Avdia up to 4'7", but he's been playing a ton of minutes in terms of what you typically expect from Denny Avdia, and producing pretty well, kind of across the box score, multiple stocks in 5 straight games. And, getting on the boards, 2-3 assists per game, double-digit scoring looks likely when he gets 30-plus minutes. I kind of like Denny there. KCP 4-4, Corey Kispert, the first-round pick of this Wizards team, getting massive minutes the last 3 games and doing okay with them, 2 of the 3 outings. So when you look at the rest of this team, is there anybody that you're prioritizing? And then, is there anybody that you're Xing out of your pool?
I don't think anybody that I'm Xing out. I think that these guys all have some, significant role here, enough to be in play. I think my favorite is Kispert, and I've kind of gone back and forth on it because he's picked up big minutes in the last 3 games with Beal and KCP out. Both of those guys are back, but now Dinwiddie and a couple of other guys. So I don't have massive effect on him, but still, it could pull him down a little bit in terms of minutes. But he played 38 last game. I believe it was 36 2 games ago. 35, 36. So 32 plus in 3 straight games and 35 or more in back to back. So even if he does lose a few minutes, I still think that there's a real solid chance he plays over 30. I have him for 32 tonight. So he's someone that I like a lot on both sides. He's 4K on DK and 3.6 on FanDuel. So I like him a lot on FanDuel. I believe he has shooting guard and small forward. No, he's just small forward on FanDuel. But there's a couple of other guys. I don't mind KCP. I have him for about 30 minutes as well, 31 pretty much. And then Denny I have at about 30. Pretty good permanent producer. He's actually the best permanent producer out of those three at about 0.84 on the year, compared to KCP, who's at about 0.74, and then Kispert, who's 0.63, 0.65, depending on the site. But again, it's in pretty limited time. He has been pretty solid the past couple of games when he's got some more run. And then that 35-minute game really produced 12 points, really hurt him in terms of that per minute stuff. But I think all three of these guys are fine. I would say Kispert would probably be my favorite just because he's the cheapest on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, they're all kind of lumped in together in terms of price. So if you wanted to save that, the 700, you can go to Kispert. But I think that Denny would probably be my favorite in terms of the highest ceiling amongst the three. I think he has the most double-double upside out of those guys there. Probably not triple-double upside, but he's shown the ability to fill up the stat sheet, across a few different categories there. So he'd probably be my favorite on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like Denny Avdia at that 4.7, small and power forward eligible. So, not pigeonholing you to one position there is always good. Jake was asking our thoughts on the minutes for Beal and KCP coming out of the protocols. Looking at your projections, you've got 35 for Beal, 30 for KCP. So I'm kind of reading that as you expect them to come back and play full minutes.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I guess I wouldn't really be worried about it anyway. But even if they wanted to, it's kind of what who are they talking about yesterday? I forget which coach said it, but he was like, we just don't really have any backups for them.
I was Nate McMillan, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, so even if we wanted to limit them, what are we gonna do? There's just nothing we can do. So they're here, so we're gonna play them. So that's kind of how I feel about it as well. But also when you look at the guys that they do have on the bench, Beal's probably gonna be their primary ball handler, right? Their bench is Alize Johnson, Isaiah Todd. I guess Jordan Goodwin could get some work handling the ball, and then Joel Ayayi, who is, I believe, Kispert's college teammate, and then Anthony Gill. These guys just aren't going to handle the ball. So, I'm assuming, Bradley Beal and KCP are going to be much needed in terms of being guards in this team that's pretty weak and pretty thin in terms of that category on this roster. So, I guess I wouldn't really be overly concerned about it. Honestly, a 3-game absence is fairly light right now for the protocol, the protocols. We're talking about guys who've missed 14 to 15 days. So they've missed 3 games. So honestly, I don't think it's that big of a scenario. I will be honest, I'm not sure if they tested positive or if they were just close contacts and that's why they missed. But based on just a 3-game absence, I'm going to assume it's the latter. So I'm assuming it's going to be all systems go for those guys.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Anthony was asking, how many Cavs are too many tonight? For me, I think it's more than 2. I don't think I'm going to want more than one of those front court guys. And even if I had to, if I played Mobley and Love, maybe I would be okay with Kevin Pangos getting in there, but then I would want multiple Wizards on the other side. And I don't, game stacking is definitely more viable on a shorter slate. But there's just not a ton. I love, and we'll get to these games, obviously, I love the value from Orlando. I like the spend ups in Philly and Brooklyn because I think that game is probably going to be the most competitive. So I think my answer is more than 2, but do you think it's crazy if you saw 3 Cavs in a lineup tonight?
No, I don't think it's necessarily crazy, but I do agree with your answer. I probably wouldn't be looking to get, more than 2 or so.
Sure. Javi chiming in asking if we can rank Franz, Wendell Carter, and Mobley. And for me, I think it's probably Mobley number 1. And then if you have the cash, I'll play Wendell over Franz. But Franz has also been great, really the whole year, but kind of exponentially getting better fantasy-wise as he gets more and more opportunity with a lot of guys out for Orlando. So that's how I would rank them. I think Mobley, Wendell Carter, Franz, but I'm fine with either Orlando guy. So Hugo changed his name to my mute button. I appreciate the shout out. Bug in the rank should be fixed now. So if anybody's not seeing Kevin Durant, let me know. But he should be showing up now. Let's see. Make sure we're getting stuff from this game. All right, that's about it. Let's go ahead and move on to the Orlando and Milwaukee game, a rematch of a game we saw on Tuesday night. Because Rybuts is asking Freddie Gillespie or Mo Wagner. So let's go ahead and get into the home team tonight, the Orlando Magic. And again, these teams, injury reports ever shifting. And I think Orlando gets the title tonight for longest injury report. They will be without Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Michael Carter-Williams, Markelle Fultz, Hassani Gravett, John Isaac, Robin Lopez, Etuan Moore, Michael Mulder, Chuma Okeke, Terrence Ross, and Jalen Suggs. As some news comes in here, again, we've got time, so I'll divert and go on this little tangent. The Cavaliers are in serious talks on a deal to acquire Lakers guard Rajon Rondo in the wake of Ricky Rubio's season-ending ACL injury. So that seems like a win-win to me. Off the top, JaVale McGee into the health and safety protocols. So it is indeed Jalen Smith's season. Maybe they can pump up his value just in time to trade him for Thad Young to the Spurs. Xavier Tillman also entered the health and safety protocols for Memphis. So there is your news update. And let's talk Orlando. With Hassani Gravett, who got the start at point guard last time for this team against the same Milwaukee team, you would have thought that maybe RJ Hampton gets in there finally into the starting lineup. Jamal Mosley says no, Tim Frazier will get the start, which I'm fine with. I think Tim Frazier is a perfectly capable fantasy asset. His point per minute rates through his 4 games with this Magic team would tell you otherwise, but he's had some really explosive fantasy performances at a low salary number. So with him starting, I like Tim Frazier a lot as a value. I'm also very heavy on RJ Hampton. Still should get right around 30 minutes coming off the bench here. I think he plays into the fourth quarter in a blowout or a close game. Those are my 2 favorite values, but the rest of this team is kind of littered with guys that I think are acceptable. Like we'll talk Mo Wagner, Freddie Gillespie getting the start at the 4. So I guess it's Tim Frazier, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Freddie Gillespie, Wendell Carter Jr. That's the starting 5 tonight for the Magic. So, Kyle, I guess pick a player out of all those that I just brought up and take it away.
On DraftKings, RJ Hampton's my favorite Magic play. I think that there are some players that project as better values, but I think in terms of his ceiling, I do think he has a pretty unique ceiling in comparison to his price. This is a guy who, when he gets the minutes, he has been pretty good. We've seen it pretty consistently over the course of this year, over the course of pretty much any time we've seen him get run. And last time, I don't know if it was the last time they played Milwaukee. Obviously, they just played Milwaukee a couple days ago, but if we throw it back like a month or 2 ago to when this Milwaukee team played this Orlando team and RJ Hampton carried the Magic team back. They were down like 30 at one point, carried them back to about a 10-point game. So good performance there. And pretty much anytime we've seen him get on the floor, he's been a pretty good permanent producer, about 0.84, 0.85 over on DraftKings. So I like him the most on DK. I do like Gillespie as well. He's projecting as a better point per dollar play than Hampton. But again, I think that Hampton does have a pretty unique ceiling. Hampton is going to be massive chalk. I have him as the most popular player on the slate, I think, on both sites. So I think he's going to be pretty popular, but I think he's still a strong play. I like Gillespie. I agree with you. I think Frazier is in play starting. I have him and Hampton playing about 30 minutes apiece. I mean, again, like starting and not, it doesn't really matter. I think that they're both going to get minutes. I think that, if they would have done something weird like start Brazdeikis and then like have Harris play the 1, that would be weird. That would be something that could maybe throw off the minutes. But I think alternating between Frazier and Hampton starting, the minutes, I think they're still going to be there for both of them either way. I mean, this is a team with 9 players is what I have the current rotation at. So I have everyone in this lineup getting 15 or more minutes. And everyone except for Schofield and Brazdeikis getting 22 or more. So lots of minutes to go around for this Magic team. I also like Wagner as well. I think he's actually a fairly interesting pivot. Well, I thought he would be a fairly interesting pivot off of Gillespie, but it looks like that they're both about the same in terms of ownership projection. So maybe not a massive leverage pivot there, but I think they're all 4 of those guys are in play as value options.
Yeah, I think I would prefer Mo Wagner tonight. Obviously, we were talking NBA brothers, NBA families last night after lock. We didn't talk about the Wagners, I don't think.
Wow,
But,
no love for the Michigan men. I'm disappointed.
yeah, man, it's tough. Yeah, you and Rinpack was getting on me yesterday because I didn't know Chaundi Brown played for the Wolverines last year. So.
Zachary.
Hey, man, look, coming to this year, I could focus on NBA and Division III. I didn't have time for Division I, so now we're getting back into it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So yeah, I think Mo Wagner is my preference to Freddie Gillespie. Even coming off the bench, we know, this guy's fantasy profile over a fantasy point per minute, and has put up some massive performances both in summer league, preseason, regular season, Olympic hoops. Like Mo Wagner, when he gets the time, is a fantasy threat. So at 3-2 and the power forward eligibility on DraftKings, I like Mo Wagner a ton. Or I guess I shouldn't say a ton, but he got a really strong rank, got a 9 there in the rankings. And again, I'm just kind of taking all my value on this slate from this Orlando team. How about up top? We got the question about Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner, also Gary Harris sitting at 5-1 on DraftKings, 5-5 on FanDuel. How are you prioritizing these guys? Are you spending salary on Franz tonight, Wendell Carter? Tough matchup against Milwaukee.
Sorry, Brad Wanamaker starting for the Wizards?
Yeah, I did just see that.
What the heck?
Yeah. Well, he signed there. I think it was a 10-day because he got waived in lieu of Kiefer Sykes from the Pacers, then got picked up right away by the Wizards. But interesting that they would slot him in there, especially with Beal and KCP getting back into that lineup. So no Kispert. Yeah. Kispert to the bench. We will have some rankings updates. No Avdia in that lineup either. So a couple curveballs there from Wes Unseld Jr., first-year coach for the Wizards.
I'm not. I honestly didn't even know that Wanamaker was on the Wizards.
Yeah,
I didn't see that, and he wasn't in. He's not even in the DraftKings pool, so you can't play him anyway. But that's definitely going to shake up some things in terms of minutes. So I'll update those. And then, sorry, what was your question about the match?
Oh yeah, just how are you looking at Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner? The most expensive Orlando players in this tough matchup.
I think that they're all pretty interesting because I think that this is a spot where people might not play them a ton. Like I still think they're going to have ownership because again, it's a 3-game slate. Pretty much everyone who is viable is going to have some ownership. But with Wagner, like this is a guy who was in the mid 4s and 5K range for the most part of the season. Now he's up over 7K on both sides. Kind of same thing for Carter, right? So I don't think that they'll get played a ton, which I do think is pretty appealing. I like them both a good amount on FanDuel. And again, like for me on these kinds of slates, it just feels like there's so much value. So playing a guy who might be, $1,000 too expensive, or maybe he's just had a couple of good games, so his price has gone up. Playing those guys, like overpaying for somebody, it doesn't really feel like it matters a ton because you just have so much salary, and now that's allowing you to get a little bit more contrarian there. So that's kind of how I'm approaching these mid-tier guys right now. At least that's just like how I've generally gone about it the last week or two. But that's kind of how I feel about Wagner and Carter. Maybe they feel a little bit expensive because of their recent play and their new roles and stuff. But I don't think that they're going to get overly popular because of those sticker shock type deals going on with their price tag. So yeah, I like them both a pretty good amount. Prefer Carter, but again, both definitely in play.
Getting some starting lineups now. Of course, all 3 games going off here in about 23 minutes, and some interesting ones here, Kyle. Cavs will start Pangos, Okoro, Markkanen, Mobley, and Kevin Love. So all 3 centers getting out there. However you want to list it. I was just telling Joe Metz, Kevin Love could be at the 3 here. That's just how Underdog decided to list them. I guess we could circle back a little bit. I think Kevin Love, the minutes are extremely solid now. I would rather play him now than Evan Mobley. I would still go Kevin Love, Evan Mobley, then Lauri Markkanen in terms of my interest. The Bucks, no surprises here. Drew Holiday, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Bobby Portis. Then the Wizards, we talked about that lineup. Brad Wanamaker, Bradley Beal, KCP, Kyle Kuzma, and Dan Gafford. Then the Nets, starting Harden, Mills, Durant, Claxton, and Aldridge, doing their best to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. So you get Claxton at the 4, Aldridge at the 5. I guess those could be interchangeable as well. And then the Sixers, no surprises here. Maxey, Curry, Tybal, Harris, and Embiid. So let's flip to this Milwaukee side. As I said, no surprises here really, and I think a pretty clean breakdown. It's Giannis if you want to spend up. Drew Holiday for me and Chris Middleton a little bit too expensive for this slate, and I think they're 15-point road favorites. Let me refresh what I've got here. 14.5-point road favorites here tonight. Highest team total on the slate, but with this team pretty much healthy. Brooke Lopez obviously still out with I think it was the back surgery. And then Semi Ojeleye hit the health and safety protocols, if I'm not mistaken, the second time. He's been out. Semi Ojeleye doesn't really have any bearing on this slate whatsoever. Looking at this Milwaukee team with nearly everybody back, is there anybody you can prioritize?
You can prioritize Giannis just because of the raw points idea on the slate. Like, hey, I just want to get the player with the most points on the slate because there is enough value to pay up for them. And obviously, there's only going to be so many points scored on the slate. So if you can get a guy that leads the slate in scoring, you're probably going to be off to a pretty good start. That's pretty much it, really. Like, I know I just talked about overpaying for guys who might be a little bit expensive, like Middleton and Holiday, and just in order to be contrarian. So you can do that with those guys. And hope that they just pop for a ceiling game, but they don't project as optimal plays or prioritizations or anything like that. So I think for me, it's mainly just Giannis and trying to soak up a lot of the raw points, like a fraction of what the slate might produce in terms of overall scoring. And then Holiday, Middleton, I guess maybe even Portis a little bit, just playing those guys if you wanted to, seek out a little bit of lower owned options. But other than that, nothing much really for me on the Bucks side.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So let's go ahead and slide to this Philly-Brooklyn game. Again, Brooklyn starting Claxton and Aldridge next to each other. Kevin Durant sliding to the 3. Kevin Durant and James Harden, obviously the two most expensive players, I should say, on this Brooklyn team. You've still got Patty Mills priced up from this entire team's bout with COVID. Aldridge and Claxton both center only on DraftKings. Bruce Brown going to the bench. Blake Griffin has kind of receded into his, minimal role, I should say, on this team. They get back Cameron Thomas. They get back David Duke Jr. I think both of those guys back to their minimal roles. Cam Thomas may still see a rotation or two coming back from the protocols. DeAndre Bembry, James Ennis probably out of there with these regular guys back, neck tack back and healthy, that being James Johnson. Javon Carter might get in there for a couple minutes alongside Paul Millsap, but not a ton of values I like here. It's kind of just deciding for me, Kyle, on which of the spend ups I want to get to. Do you have a lean one way or the other?
I guess I would lean Durant on DraftKings. On FanDuel, though, I don't mind going to Harden for 700 less, but again, I do prefer Durant. I have Durant at a lot lower ownership on FanDuel, which is pretty appealing because, again, I don't want to say salary means nothing these days, but it feels like it's very easy to fit in the guys that you want to fit in, right? Like finding an extra 700 is not all that difficult on slates these days. But so I would prefer Durant straight up. But if you wanted to save on FanDuel, that's $700 for Harden, I don't mind it. But I pretty much agree with your point. Like, all these guys are priced to where they were the Nets with 8 people, and Patty Mills is playing 48 minutes a game, and they're running out everybody for as many minutes as they possibly could. It's just not needed anymore. Outside of KD, Harden, and Patty Mills, I don't really know if anybody else even cracks 30 because they have so many guys that they can kind of just throw out there for 18 to 24 minutes and call it a day. So those are the only 3 guys I have projected for over 30 minutes. So for me, Patty Mills, too expensive on the slate. I know I just made my point about paying up for a guy who might be a little bit contrarian, but he's a little bit different because he's being impacted by guys returning, where that's not the case for other guys that I was talking about. I more so mean if someone has been performing well, then their price has risen because of that, not because of a direct role change. So for me, it's just the spend ups, maybe LaMarcus Aldridge if you wanted to mess around with that, but just mainly the spend ups, and I would lean Durant.
Yeah, I don't think I differ too much. Maybe there's some trepidation getting to Kevin Durant because it's his first game back, right? Steve Nash said yesterday that he was probable for this game. So he cleared the protocols on Tuesday. So back in the gym, back at the facility for 2 days to kind of ramp up. I think I'm with you here, going Durant over Harden. And yeah, you're spot on with international Patty there, much to my chagrin. You'll probably see the minutes continue to stay in the low 30s, but when they first started losing guys to COVID, he was getting this type of minutes, but the shots weren't there, to your point. So I think, yeah, he's just he's a guy that I would personally X out if I was building my 20 lineups tonight. If Patty goes off, like he did Christmas Day or something like that, then I'm just going to enjoy watching it and, just get him next time, as they say. Any interest in some of these cheaper guys for this team? Like, you're going to see some DeAndre Bembry, Bruce Brown off the bench. Their price is a little bit elevated maybe for their roles tonight. Certainly not touching Javon Carter, Paul Millsap, but maybe like James Johnson. Any of those guys that you would throw in if you're running multiple lineups?
I guess the main one I would consider is Claxton on DraftKings. He's just under 5, but I mean that's a little bit more expensive. I guess Bembry would be my next favorite on DraftKings, but it's very tough for me to really prioritize any of these guys here.
Yeah, that's right where I am as well. So let's talk the visiting Sixers here. Obviously, Joel Embiid up top. Brooklyn seemingly going big to try to counter Joel Embiid here, who's been just on an absolute tear over the last 4 games, just over 60 DK points per game over his last 4. No real guys on this Brooklyn side that have any chance of stopping him, but, maybe going to see some double teams all night, etc. So is maybe the game plan here, like Steve Nash showing his hand a little bit with the different starting lineup, is that scaring you off a guy like Embiid at all when we have, like, it's a short slate, but we've got Giannis, we've got Durant and Harden, etc. Like, there's plenty of places to spend tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't play Embiid, it's not gonna be because of the lineup or maybe more attention that he would get. It would be just because I think that you can spend elsewhere as well. Like, Embiid, I think, is fantastic tonight, but I like both Brooklyn guys, especially Durant, and I like Giannis as well. So if I weren't to play him, it wouldn't be because of that. It'd be because of other options. But yeah, I think Embiid makes a ton of sense here. There is some value at the center position, but like me and you were talking about earlier, it does feel like a lot of the guys who have center, who are values, also have power forward eligibility as well as center. So it doesn't necessarily feel like you need to avoid Embiid in order to get some value plays in. So yeah, I think he makes a ton of sense tonight.
Well, looking at Tobias Harris, on that massive contract, not doing great from a fantasy perspective. I say that. The guy freaking triple-doubled last game, but before that, he really hadn't been paying off his price, and the price had continued to rise on DraftKings. He's cheaper over there on FanDuel, 7.4, and I think you can still get him at like 1.3x over there on our sponsor SuperDraft, 1.25, so the extra 25% for Tobias over there. Not too bad, but at 8.8 on DraftKings, it's really tough for me to get there. Not exactly the best matchup on the wing because you're either going to see Nick Claxton or you're going to see Kevin Durant now. So I don't think I can really get to Tobias Harris with any sort of volume if I was building out 20 lineups, but I would have a lot of interest in a guy like Tyrese Maxey, whose price has plummeted now to 5.6 on DraftKings, back in the starting lineup. And as Anthony pointed out in the chat, we know Anthony plugged into all things Philly. Embiid called him out after the last game. Poor performance, 2 of 11 from the field for Maxey in his 36 minutes. And now down to 5.6 on DK. What's your interest level on the sophomore point guard?
Yeah, I like him a lot on DraftKings. I guess I shouldn't say a lot. I like him more on DraftKings than on FanDuel. I do think he's a pretty good play. He's top 15 in the player rater. I like him a pretty good amount. On FanDuel, he's still priced up a little bit, 6.6. But the most interesting thing about him on DraftKings is only a 21% ownership projection. Not going to be contrarian or anything, but on a 3-game slate, I'll take 21%. I think that's maybe not considered low, but definitely not chalk, right? So I think that he's fairly interesting. On FanDuel, though, I mean, I agree with you 100% with Tobias Harris on DK, but on FanDuel, 7,400, I don't mind taking some stabs on him, especially if you're not using Embiid. Like, it kind of comes down to a spot where if you're building lineups and you're like, oh, I don't have Joel Embiid, there's probably going to be points or production coming from Philly. And if you don't have Embiid, it probably makes sense to get some exposure to these secondary Philadelphia guys. So on DK, prefer Maxey. On FanDuel, prefer Tobias. So you can kind of do things like that. Same thing for Milwaukee, right? If you don't have Giannis, you can look down the board. If you don't have one of Durant, you might probably want the other between Durant and Harden. So doing those kinds of things on a 3-game slate makes a ton of sense, in my opinion. And you can use the optimizer to make certain rules like that as well. Like you can say you want 0 to whatever amount of players from whatever group as well. So that is a good way to approach the slate, in my opinion. So Tobias on FanDuel, Maxey on DraftKings, Embiid's fine both places. What are your thoughts on Tybal today? 30 minutes is where I have him at. 4,100 on FanDuel, 34 on DK. I don't think he'll get a lot of ownership, and that's interesting enough for me on a 3-game slate where he's going to be a value play with no ownership. Well, I have him at about 15%, so that's not a ton. But 30 minutes, if he gets 30 minutes, I think he's fine, but not a good permanent producer. But he does fine on FanDuel with the steals and blocks. So I think he has a case to be made there. But other than that, not sure how I feel about him as a value option.
Yeah, I think it's something that I would rather get to on FanDuel. Obviously 3-4 price near the floor there on DraftKings, but I would prefer to get to any of those magic values that we talked about. I would prefer to get to Kevin Pangos, different position, but similar salary range there. But certainly not out of play. You mentioned the minutes last game. This team is getting more healthy. Niang is back now. With Danny Green out, I think that minutes floor, as you mentioned, is solid for Tybal. And then at the guard position, I don't think we mentioned that Shake Milton is back for this team as well. But with the propensity for stocks for Tybal, like this guy can go 30 minutes and literally not score and still get you 20 plus fantasy points because of the other peripherals he can rack up, especially in a game that's projected to get up and down like this one, 221 total, and that 5-point spread in favor of Brooklyn. So I think I would prefer to spend the 4-1 for him on FanDuel, but certainly not out of play on DraftKings either. I don't think I would get to him on SuperDraft, even with his elevated multiplier. He's 1.85 there, but I just think there's much better places to go. I don't think you're going to get enough raw points on SuperDraft for him to be optimal tonight. If you're building 150, are you including guys like George Niang, Furkan Korkmaz in your pool? Or are you just, kind of focusing on some of the other values from the other games or other teams, I should say?
Yeah, probably just focusing elsewhere. I guess the one guy that I probably would include is Korkmaz on DraftKings, just because he could go and hit 5 or 6 threes in limited time and get there at 3,200. I guess Niang could also do the same, but probably not playing both those guys in the same lineup. So I would be making sure to set those kinds of rules or keep that kind of thinking in your mind when you're building lineups. But I guess I don't hate including them on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I probably don't, just because Korkmaz is 1,000 over the min on FanDuel anyway. Niang is about 400 over the minimum, so I don't feel like they're super values anyway, like even if they were to have solid games. So probably stick that interest to DraftKings only. But Milton would probably be the guy that I would have some interest in. Like I haven't played 24 minutes. I know he's coming off of a pretty lengthy absence, but if he plays 24 minutes, has a 1 fantasy point per minute game, he could find his way into a decent lineup on a 3-game slate. So he'd probably be the main guy that I would have some interest in.
Got about 8 minutes and change left until all 3 of these games lock, and we will shuffle off. No rankings updates tonight. No late swaps. None of that.
Just such a relieving feeling.
I know it's insane. I don't know if I've ever experienced this on an NBA slate.
It's very. I know it's not. I know it's not a great slate, but selfishly, it feels so nice to be able to just be done at 7 and not have to update throughout the night.
So especially now, right? With the way the NBA is the last 2.5 weeks, it's definitely a nice. You can take a little deep breath tonight before getting back
Absolutely.
at it tomorrow, Kyle, because we got 2 fucking slates on Friday. So
Yes,
just to
sir.
close out 2021 in style. Everybody, fire your questions off. I know I haven't gotten to all of them, so I'll scroll up a little bit to try to make sure we didn't miss anything. Josh asking Love over Mobley. Yeah, Love over Mobley for me now. I think on both sites. I know they're closer in price over there on FanDuel. Love just a better fantasy producer. I think Evan Mobley's going to end up having the better career. I don't know if he picks up a ring or not, but I'm a big Evan Mobley guy. Are you with me on Love over Mobley, Kyle?
Yes. Yeah, I am. Actually, Love is my favorite super draft play of the night. 1.6. I like that number there. I like him a lot. But yeah, I do think I prefer Love slightly. I still don't think like him starting means he's going to play massive minutes. But I think last time he started, he played like 23 or 24 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But now the fact that you can kind of feel pretty good about 25, 26, and then if there's a world where he does play 30, like if he plays 30, he's probably going to crush this price tag here, and especially the super draft multiplier. So yeah, on DraftKings, I definitely prefer Love. On FanDuel, though, I still think I prefer Mobley because they're only $300 different in the price. But on the same kind of token there, Love will be much lower owned on FanDuel.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Seabass asking if we can rank our favorite spend ups. So I'll do DraftKings, you do FanDuel. On DraftKings for me, the 5 guys over 10K. Give me Giannis, number 1. I don't think it's tough to spend up for him, get him into your lineups with all the values. And with all the interest I have in those Orlando values, I want to run it back with Giannis. We talked about him just kind of being the priority, if you can call it that, from that Bucks side that's expected to blow out the Magic tonight. Then I think Embiid probably my second favorite, then Durant and Harden, but I'm fine with all 3 of those guys in that game. And Beal is a distant 5th for me coming off the health and safety protocols, albeit a shorter stint on him for him on that list. I just don't have him projected really in the realm of those other 4. So again, Giannis, Embiid, Durant, Harden, then Beal for me. How about FanDuel?
Yeah, the one that is important to note for the difference in the 2 sites is Beal's only 8,300 on FanDuel, so he wouldn't be considered like a spend up, but he's a much better play on FanDuel than on DraftKings in my opinion. But my ranks would be Giannis, then Durant, and then Embiid, and then Harden. And I think Embiid's actually the better point per dollar value play. He's $1,000 cheaper than Durant on FanDuel, but I think that will get a pretty interestingly low ownership on Durant. Like I think Durant, if you're playing FanDuel, Durant is probably a great spend up option because he's much more expensive than everyone else, which probably doesn't sound great. Like, oh, okay, we're going to spend the most that you possibly can for someone on a slate that doesn't really project. He doesn't project better than Giannis, or he's not much better than Harden or Embiid. But the ownership being low is interesting. Like if you get a guy who can go out and score 70 points at sub 25% on a 3-game slate, I think that's a win. I think that and plus you can fit multiple of these spend up options, all the value on the slate. So Durant's probably my favorite one, but ranking them based on the quality of play, I'd probably say Giannis, Durant, and Embiid, Harden.
Alrighty, next question is from Mallard. Good to see our good buddy there asking if Denzel Valentine is in play. And I actually just knocked down his rank on DraftKings. Was an 8. Now that he's not getting the start, he's down to a 7. Also, Dean Wade not starting also got a tick down in the rankings. He's in play, but I don't think I would get there in my first 10 lineups at this point, and maybe not in 20. But I'm not going to call you crazy for using him as a value tonight. Obviously, a little bit of a murky situation with Windler and Stevens coming back for the Cavaliers and them still being shorthanded. Are you kind of taking the same approach with Denzel?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I thought he was fine. I mean, if you play him, I still don't hate it if you fall into him, but I definitely think he does take a step back here in terms of my interest. And like in terms of other guys on the Cavs, I would rather play Wade, would rather play Pangos, rather find a little bit of extra salary, get up to Okoro. So if you fall on him, I don't hate it, but I would prefer other Cavs.
Anthony chiming in saying, we'll know how good of a night we will have about 90 minutes from now. And yeah, that is the beautiful thing about this slate. We can just maybe close the laptop early if it doesn't go well in the first half and move on with our night. But hopefully looking more rosy 90 minutes from now than that. See Joe posting his single entry core there. Not going to give it out. You got to pay for that. You got to pay for the Joe Mets core. Anthony also asking our thoughts on Gary Harris. 5-1 on DK. I think he's a very solid value. Also 2x multiplier over there on SuperDraft. That doesn't actually sound right. Let me look that up. Maybe there's a bug in my sheet here. But what are your thoughts on Gary Harris? Yeah, 1.8x over there on SuperDraft.
Yeah, he's in the top 25 for me on SuperDraft. And in case you guys are curious, we do have SuperDraft projections up on the site. If you go to I think it's labeled ownership projections or ownership and projections tab on the site. And I know it's kind of hidden because the table's big because I'm a weirdo and have a lot of numbers. But all the way to the right is the SuperDraft projections, and those are updated every night with the multipliers. So that's what I used to build my SuperDraft lineups, and it's worked pretty well for me. And he's in the top 25. And anytime you have a guy that is at 1.8, you can easily pop for a big night. I think Hamidou Diallo wasn't quite a 1.8 last night. I think it was 1.65.
Correct.
104 SuperDraft points. That's a big night, and he was in my SuperDraft article yesterday, so felt good to get one right there.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you did not play Hamidou in the listener league last night, I don't think you got a ticket. Producer Thomas, one of the few that didn't. T Panthers asking thoughts on Beal getting the extra 20% boost in the main SuperDraft GPP.
Yeah, I like Beal. He's 11th in terms of SuperDraft projections, but I also like Kyle Kuzma a little bit on SuperDraft, 1.55. So I like him. Don't mind getting either of those guys, but Gafford would be my favorite Washington play, 1.5x multiplier there.
Yeah, one of the 3 guys that have 10s on SuperDraft right now in the rankings is Daniel Gafford. The other 2, Kevin Love, Joel Embiid, all 3 of those guys forward eligible. Mallard asking a 2v2 here, Tyrese Maxey and Denzel Valentine, or Gary Harris and Kevin Pangos. It's the second one for me.
Yeah, same second.
Anthony, of course, the Pennsylvania resident saying screw the SuperDraft stuff. You're not going to avoid it here, my friend. You know that. Move to a different state. I don't know. You move to Pittsburgh, the best city in Pennsylvania, and then you could, cross the border into Ohio. You could say hi to Eddie Fear while you're at it. Under a minute now until main slate locks. So any last minute questions we will get to. Try to type back in the chat. Because I know we are on like a 10-second delay or something like that. Then we'll take a look at ownership and go ahead and get out of here on this Thursday evening. Any plans tonight, Kyle? You got anything crazy going on? Or I guess you said you don't go outside, so maybe I feel silly for asking.
No, I actually am. I have.
Oh shit!
I have actually a friend that's from Austin, and he's from here, moved to Austin after college, and he's back in town. So going to get some dinner with him after this. So it should be fun. Good to. But yeah, I love that you asked this question. The one night of the year that I'm actually doing something. So now I feel like I actually have a life. It feels good.
All right, we are at lock, everybody. So we'll pull up the ownership and get out of here. Appreciate, Josh asking who won the listener league. I believe it was you, Josh. Josh, is that your first takedown? I don't remember. I think Josh might be his second. Might be the first 2-time champion of the Fast Eddie Fear SuperDraft listener league. Still waiting on ownership to populate here. I know Eddie's across the border, Anthony. He's in Ohio.
We got a lot of Eddie avatars here, throwing me off.
Oh, dude, I changed mine last night to the Eddie picture. Like, it made me do a double take. I came back like an hour after the stream ended. I typed something. I did a double take. Joe, what are you talking? Joe, every Wednesday, dude. You know this. You've played in it before.
If he's played in it and he is confused, then we're gonna have a talk, Joe.
Joe's got that COVID brain,
and he has a kid. He's probably tired. We'll give him a break.
All right, I got ownership.
2 hours of sleep with COVID, not ideal.
Yeah, he said he's beating me in a head-to-head though. That's true.
Wow.
We'll have to run it. We'll have to run it back. Maybe tomorrow. We got 2. We can go twice tomorrow, Joe. We got 2 slates over there. Nice little 3-gamer starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then the main slate, I believe, is also just your normal 7 Eastern. I got ownership here. All the games locked. Let's go. Let's try to guess the top 3 here, Kyle.
Okay.
On DraftKings.
All right. Number 1. Do I have to give an order? I probably should give an order. Daniel Gafford.
It's not Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford number 2, though.
Okay. Is it RJ Hampton?
RJ Hampton number 1.
Okay. So not I actually have RJ Hampton in the ownership projections as number 1, so I just didn't trust myself enough.
God, come on. You're not the optimizer extraordinaire for nothing, Kyle.
What is his total ownership? I'm just curious.
RJ 66, Daniel Gafford 64.
I had RJ at 65. I suck. I'll go with Harden as number 3.
Harden came in at number 4. Kevin Love got up there.
Okay, 3. That makes sense.
49%. Everybody running to the Kevin Love resurgence, and I don't blame him. Projects really well tonight. Harden number 4, Embiid number 5, both at 40%, separated by 0.46. Tim Frazier actually got up there 6th, getting the start for the Magic, 38%. Isaac Okoro 35, Franz Wagner 30. Then we've got Giannis, Freddie Gillespie 28%. That makes me want to see where Mo Wagner is. Mo Wagner 18.
Wow.
So again, still like Mo Wagner more, and you get the ownership discount there over the starting Freddie Gillespie. My guy Kevin Pangos 27%, KD 26%, Tyrese Maxey, Evan Mobley, KCP, Wendell Carter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, all right around 20. Bradley Beal 19. Let's see if there's any other notables. I don't need to read off the entire slate here. Corey Kispert held 8% off the bench. I think that's probably dead money here. With him not getting the start, I did not have a ton of remaining interest in the rookie. Nick Claxton getting the start. He's at 4%. Aldridge getting the start, 2.6%. Jordan Nwora probably may not play. Didn't see the court in their blowout of the Magic the other night. 2.5% there on Jordan Nwora. I think that's about it. That'll do it. That will do it. Yeah, man, we got some. 0.2% Kyle Guy. That's dead money. 0.2% Spencer Dinwiddie.
Love it.
Alize Johnson, 0.4. I would have had 1 in my 20.
That's sure. I mean, like I said, 5 between the two of those guys. So if you went like 2.5 to Todd and 2.5 to Alize, like just saying, okay, if you don't know the answer, which we probably don't, but like if you wanted to take that shot, 5% of your lineups doesn't really kill you, right? Like I mean, sure, you could look back and see a great lineup with Alize Johnson with 8 points at the end of the night and be like, what the hell, Kyle? Why did you tell me to do that? But like again, like it was just the point where it didn't take a lot to get over the field on that. So those kinds of things is what we were trying to talk about there.
Josh asking if I have any head-to-head wins on SuperDraft. I don't know if I do. I think I've only ever done 2 head-to-heads to you and Conrad Joseph Metz the 6th over there. I do have a listener league win though, Josh. So you slow your roll a little bit. we can run it back tomorrow.
People are throwing their shots at you.
Dude, coming at my head today. Probably deserved. So that'll get us out of here on this Thursday. Everybody enjoy the games. Enjoy your evening. Again, if you haven't signed up for SuperDraft, you go over there. Promo code FTN gets you a $100 bonus if you deposit $100 or more. And you can sign up here at FTN Daily. That code right below me. Where is it? Right there. FTN TV. 15% off any package here. So if you sign up for the NBA monthly package, it's $49.99, but you use FTN TV, gets you 15% off that first month of the subscription. And because FTN is the shit and that's certified, that's 15% discount is every month from now until the end of the NBA finals. You're going to get the ownership projections, the optimizer courtesy of Kyle Murray right here sitting with me. You get all kinds of tools, the on-off splits, advanced DVP, etc. You get access to the FTN NBA Discord channel, the best chat in the industry. So says Cody J. So you can ask him about it. You also get rankings from Fast Eddie Fear and myself, all that stuff every day here with the NBA package. So again, code FTNTV, 15% off. And when you join, get in that Discord, tag Kyle, tag myself, let us know you're here because we would love to have you. Kyle, I saw a couple new subs pop up, said they joined a couple weeks ago, been lurking a little bit, but popped up today asking questions of some of the other subs. And of course, our subs also best in the business, helping out the new folks all afternoon. So that'll get us out of here. Shout out to Kyle. for being here with me, putting up with me on this 3-game slate. My name's Zach. That's Kyle. Shout out Thomas, our producer extraordinaire behind the glass. I think still stuck in Tahoe, but headed home soon. Good luck tonight, everybody. And as always,
let's get these beans.